pull. The ground teams have worked hard over the past probably years to come up with a set of what we call flight rules. So those are technical constraints, items that we look for, that if any of those criteria were violated, then we have a rule that we've predetermined, gives us guidance to say whether we could approach or not. So far, our vehicle has been very healthy, but technical ground teams will all do their due diligence to make sure that it's still safe to approach.
Right, and at this moment, that approach is continuing, still moving in at about 0.3 of a meter per second. Dragon's coming up on just 100 meters away from the space station.
So the very top there is the nose cone on the spacecraft, where we've got a cool view. Left side of your screen is the International Space Station. Right side of your screen is Dragon.
We're inside 100 meters, continuing to close. Again, we're going to have a short hold at 20 meters. Teams will just do a final check, and then they'll give Dragon the go. We're expecting it to be pretty brief. We should get to that hold point in just about 4 minutes, moving at our current pace.
I think you can see a meatball and American flag on that on the spacecraft. The NASA logo, of course, referred to as the meatball. I think there was some spirited discussion about the meatball versus the worm during ascent. And you can see those logos. That structure on the fairing structure is actually what the Super Dracos are housed in. Of course, all of those are deactivated now, only used for launch escape during the ascent portion. Nose cone right at the top of the vehicle. And you can see sort of the sealing surface, those four circular slots right underneath the nose cone within that red ring are the forward bulkhead Dracos. That's what we were using while we were conducting all those burns, the 5 burns to get to this point. Right now, we don't have a reason to use those. We'll only be making small attitude corrections with the service section Dracos. And you can see the service section actually pretty clearly here too. There's a black portion and a white portion sort of separated by a fin. The black portion is solar panels, solar cells that'll charge Dragon's batteries. And the bottom side, the white portion, is actually a thermal radiator that's used to keep the spacecraft nice and cool. Of course, the avionics and the cabin, making sure that Bob and Doug are comfortable inside.
Looks like we're getting a shadow cast. We are just 60 meters away, continuing to close in, just about 40 meters to go until we're at that hold point. Should get there in just over 2 minutes. Meanwhile, teams in Hawthorne and in Houston doing their internal go, no go for docking. They're going to get all the teams pulled. Once everyone's go, we'll be able to give Dragon the final go ahead for the vehicle to autonomously fly in and dock with the International Space Station. Should be coming up on waypoint 2 arrival in just about 1 minute, 45 seconds. At this point, it'll be 20 meters away from that docking port. The International Docking Adapter number 2 attached to pressurized mating adapter number 2 at the very forward end of the Harmony module.
Right there on right around the center, you can see the forward hatch. It's got a window in it. You can see a couple of handles, and there's some features that look sort of bronze-ish. Those are the pedals that we were talking about earlier as part of the soft capture system. So pretty wild, too, to see. We're so close that we're getting shadows from the station on Dragon. Wow.
And we're getting these views of Dragon's approach from 2 cameras that are right next to that docking adapter. And the movement's a little jarring at times. These cameras are being commanded by a person at the Cronus console in Mission Control Houston, and they send some very basic function commands to the camera, which it then executes automatically. And so they're continuing to follow Dragon in, so we do thank them for their diligence to give us these views of this historic moment as we are just less than 30 meters away from docking.
Right above the NASA meatball logo, you can see three of the service section Draco thrusters.
That's right, 12 in all. So the 4 of those clusters spread around the vehicle, used for a lot of the attitude control and any small translational maneuvers like we just watched Bob and Doug execute with their second manual flight test.
Yeah, and actually oriented in a way, too, where if you were to lose some of those thrusters, you still have redundancy and control in those axes. That's part of the reason why they're sort of at the angles that they are.
All right, so we should be getting to waypoint 2 right now. So it looks like we do have that hold.
SpaceX on Big Loop. The ground is go for approach 2. We will be enabling the resume shortly. As a reminder, ensure your visors are closed prior to Dragon's departure from the waypoint. And once Dragon is inside, the crew hands-off point, retreat and breakout are not permitted. And for your awareness, we have sunset in a little less than 8.5 minutes.
Copies all on the Big Loop. Go for docking.
So Doug on the spacecraft confirming their go for docking. They're going to put down their visors. Got some instructions there about the crew hands-off point that we had talked about earlier. That's a point where we don't want the crew issuing any commands to the vehicle. It's about just about 2 meters away from the docking adapter. I believe the number is about 1.7 meters.
Station Houston on the Big Loop. Houston and station are now go for docking. Chris, you can monitor per steps 3 and 4. 3 and 4 in 1.104 Crew Dragon approach and retreat monitoring.
Copy steps 3 and 4. Next Dragon on the Big Loop. Our visors are down.
Copy, visors down.
With the crew confirming their visors down, we should see the final approach resume.
Station Dragon on the Big Loop. We are inbound from approach 2.
Copy, inbound.
Station copy.
And we're going to be racing that sunset. The approach has resumed. Dragon closing in. We're inside 20 meters. And yeah, that crew hands-off point should come up in about 3 minutes or so. Right before we get that final docking, it comes about 20 seconds prior, or just about 2 meters away from the station still. And that's just the crew not issuing any abort commands. At that point, it would be too late. And so any aborts would be executed automatically by Dragon itself. So we're closing in at less than 1/10 of a meter per second at this point.
You can see the service section Dracos just doing all these very small, minor attitude corrections. Really, the autonomous docking system at work, making sure that the vestibule and the soft capture system is lined up with IDA2. It's the International Docking Adapter. You can see much more clearly there the hinge mechanism for the nose cone. Those 4 black circles are the forward bulkhead Dracos, not to be used at this time. And then, of course, the pedals of the soft capture system. Wow.
Dragon on the Big Loop. We're inside 10 meters. We cannot make out the docking target, but we do see the outline.
We copy and concur 10 meters.
Right, we're less than 10 meters away. Again, we're closing at that rate of less than 1/10 of a meter per second. We should be just about 1 minute 45 seconds away from docking.
There's a center line camera right in that middle, so you can see where the forward hatch is, and right in the middle of that there's a window, and there's a center line camera that is aligned with the center of the vehicle and the center of the docking mechanism. So that is what the autonomous docking system is using to line up with sort of a cross-hatch, cross-target on the docking port. Again, the forward docking port on PMA2, or the pressurized mating adapter.
And we are just 5 meters away. Again, we're racing that sunset. This Dragon continues to close, 4 meters to go.
Those shadows of the space station on the vehicle. Yeah, you can actually see the centerline camera pretty clearly there, sort of with the contrast of the sun right now.
3 meters to go. Two meters. We are inside the hands-off point, the chop, the crew hands-off point. 1 meter to go. Soft capture complete.
Dragon is SpaceX. Soft capture confirmed. Stand by for retraction and docking.
And we just heard it, soft capture. We have docking, that coming at 7:16 a.m. Pacific time, with the station and Dragon flying 262 statute miles right over the border between northern China and Mongolia.
You saw a little bit of motion there of Dragon. That was that relative motion that the soft capture system is damping out. Once that motion is clear, then the soft capture system will be retracted, and Dragon will go for hard capture.
Again, if just now tuning in, that soft capture, that docking coming 7:16 a.m. Pacific, 10:16 a.m. over on the East Coast. Dragon and the International Space Station were flying 262 statute miles right over the border between northern China and Mongolia. So that soft capture ring now going to retract. It's one more step on the way to docking complete.
Yeah, we on board.
Yeah, and so the next step here is once the soft capture ring is retracted, there are 12 latches that we refer to as hard capture latches. Those are what will really create that pressure-tight seal between the Dragon spacecraft and the International Space Station. So once soft capture is complete, and I believe we'll get that call from our core here, Anna, then we'll get confirmation of hard capture, and the crew, of course, aboard have this information on their displays, so they'll also see indication of hard capture complete. And once those two steps are done, then that's docking complete.
That's right, and we're expecting to hear some words from everybody. A pretty monumental moment. I mean, for Doug Hurley, he's returning to where he last docked almost 9 years ago on the very last space shuttle mission, now commanding the very first commercial spacecraft to deliver astronauts to the International Space Station.
That's got to be cool for them. They've mentioned quite a few times that they're best friends, our favorite dads in space, as we've been calling them. This has got to be really cool for them. It's got to be really cool for their families too, watching this.
Looks like we have another quick handover. We'll get that video back shortly. We're about 75% complete already with that retraction. Once that retraction is completed, we'll keep an eye out for the 12 ready to hook indicators. Once those are ready, those 12 hooks will begin to engage, and that'll securely attach Dragon to the International Space Station.
Yeah, so right now the vehicle confirming that the soft capture system is deployed correctly and is fully retracted. And then once the soft capture system is fully retracted, that'll set up the vehicle to put in the hard capture pins. There's 12 of those around the docking ring, and that's what creates that airtight seal between the Dragon spacecraft and the International Space Station. The volume between, which we refer to as the vestibule, is currently not pressurized. Of course, it was just exposed to the vacuum of space until literally minutes ago, about 4 minutes ago. So just waiting for the vehicle to get that.
Dragon SpaceX, ring retraction complete. Docking sequence is holding for MCS reconfiguration.
All right, so we see those ready to hook indicators are lighting up green. So we should be just about to step into those 12 hooks beginning to engage to get that secure mate between Dragon and the International Docking Adapter on the space station.
Wow, right now those two vehicles are flying together. They are attached to each other.
It's been just under 19 hours since we lifted off. We're actually at about 18 hours, 58 minutes, and 42 seconds. So we promised about a 19-hour ride up to station, and we made it just a few minutes before that. They were able to dock a few minutes ahead of schedule. We were tracking them to still take about another 10 minutes, but able to step through all of their burns about 16 minutes ahead of schedule and get us to where we are now. If you missed it just a few moments ago, that initial docking coming at 7:16 a.m. Pacific, 10:16 a.m. over on the east coast of the United States, and they were 262 statute miles flying together over the northern border of China and Mongolia. So really exciting. We're just waiting for this docking complete to be confirmed. We'll expecting to hear some words, obviously, from the crew on board and all the excited teams down here. We're just waiting for this moment. And then it's time to start getting Dragon integrated into the station. There will be an umbilical that will get mated, and that'll allow Dragon to flow data and power into the station systems, and then it'll be over to the crew.
Endeavour and station at Houston on the big loop. MCS is configured. We're proceeding with hook driving.
All right, and they did a quick, so the motion control system onboard station now back under those control moment gyros, so handed over from the Russian thrusters, and Dragon now given the go to drive those hooks. We have to do that changeover of attitude control before we drive those hooks, as the Russian thrusters a little bit more dynamic in their control of attitude, and if you had a thruster firing while you were starting to drive those hooks, that could miss a line. So going over to the smoother control moment gyros on the U.S. side, now controlling the attitude on board the station, and those hooks, those 12 hooks on Dragon, about to start driving.
Right now, Dragon and ISS attached, just flying off the east coast of China, just underneath Japan. Attached to each other, we recently passed over to the orbital night, so we're on the currently the dark side of the world. And actually, we're lucky enough to see soft capture happen just as we were crossing over the Terminator line.
And if you're wondering what you're looking at, this is one of the cameras on the very outboard part of the Japanese experiment module, looking back in towards the very front part of Node 2, where Dragon is currently docked. We are in an orbital nighttime, that's why everything is so dark, but you're looking at Dragon. It is horizontal to the ground, So the hatch part is right where that green light pretty much is. You can see the nose cone still illuminated above it, and it is currently attached to an international docking adapter on the International Space Station.
And inside that capsule are Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley, first astronauts to fly on a privately developed vehicle up to the International Space Station. Both test pilots got to do some fun tests today. Have a few more steps before they can actually get aboard and ingress to the International Space Station. And that's what we heard over the big loop, that transition, which allows us to then proceed with hard capture.
And we're seeing the first set of hooks, so the first 6 out of the 12 are now closed, 6 more to go.
Again, there are 12 of those along the ring. And that helps us ensure that we have an airtight seal. It is vacuum around them right now, so we want to make sure we're keeping all of that valuable life support in the vehicle. Now the combined ISS Dragon vehicle.
Meanwhile, inside the capsule, Bob and Doug also standing by for this hard capture to complete. And once we have that docking complete call, they'll be able to start stepping through a number of procedures to get them ready to move into the International Space Station. They'll get the go-ahead to doff or get out of their suits, and then they'll have some activities on the Dragon side to prepare for the hatch opening. Chris Cassidy will mainly be working on the station side to pressurize the vestibule. So as Shiv has talked about, the space between the Dragon capsule and the space station was exposed to vacuum, and even after this tight seal has occurred, we'll still be at vacuum inside. So we'll actually open up a valve to supply air from the station side into that space between the Dragon and station hatchways, and they'll get it up to the same ambient pressure that we'll have inside of Dragon and on the station itself. They'll wait for it to thermally balance out, make sure we don't have any temperature swings as we're bringing it up from vacuum. So probably from a very cold temperature up to about 72 degrees that they have in their cabin temperature on board the station, and then we'll get the hatches open.
Dragon SpaceX, hard capture complete. Stand by for docking completion.
Copy.
And now that hard capture is complete, so that's confirmation of those 12 latches to create that airtight seal. Now that's complete, the umbilicals from the station side will interface with the Dragon vehicle umbilicals, and that'll provide power and communications through space station directly to Dragon. Pretty much the whole way up, Dragon's been using a combination of batteries and its solar cells pointed at the sun to make sure that it has enough electrical power for the journey up.
And we're just standing by now for that umbilical to get mated, and that's going to, again, as Shiv was just saying, start the power and data transfer between Dragon and the space station. They've been transmitting data through RF radio frequency on the way uphill, and during the final approach, this will give a hard mate, basically a wired LAN connection between the Dragon spacecraft and the International Space Station itself, and then also being able to draw power from the station systems using those great big solar arrays that are used to generate all of the electricity for systems on board the station. And the soft capture system has been stowed. We see the umbilical starting to deploy. About 40% of the way so far, going pretty quickly. Should just take a couple more seconds until we're all the way connected. And then we should be getting that docking complete call out from the core here in Mission Control, SpaceX and Hawthorne. Standing by.
Dragon SpaceX docking sequence is complete.
Dragon, we copy docking complete. To say that it's been a real honor to be just a small part of this 9-year endeavor since the last time the United States spaceship has docked with the International Space Station. We have to congratulate the men and women of SpaceX at Hawthorne, McGregor, and at Kennedy Space Center. They're incredible over the last several years to make this possible, cannot go overstated. I'd also like to thank Kathy Leaders and her team of the Commercial Crew Program of NASA. An outstanding job by everyone. Last, I'd like to thank the men and women of the National Aeronautics and Space Agency. This is an incredible time to be at NASA. 3 new vehicles to be flown, continuing mission in low Earth orbit, and then to the moon and Mars. We thank you again and congratulate you.
Dragon arriving. Crew of Expedition 63 is honored to welcome Dragon and the Commercial Crew Program to welcome aboard the International Space Station. Bob and Doug, glad to have you as part of the crew. Well done. Bravo Zulu.
Okay, happy. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Endeavour, this is Houston. Bob and Doug, welcome to the International Space Station after your spectacular rendezvous and docking of the first Crew Dragon vehicle. For the first time since the retirement of the Space Shuttle, you have completed a historic ride to the ISS and have opened up a new chapter in human space exploration. On behalf of the flight control teams here in Houston and in Hawthorne, California, and to our SpaceX colleagues, bravo on a magnificent moment in spaceflight history and on the start of a new journey that has changed the face of space travel in this new era of space transportation. Bob and Doug, good luck, and we look forward to working with you on board.
Dragon SpaceX, Bob and Doug, we here at SpaceX are honored to have been part of ushering in this new era of human spaceflight. On behalf of the SpaceX and NASA partnership, congratulations on a phenomenal accomplishment and welcome to the International Space Station.
Well, thank you, Anna. We appreciate all the good words and everyone thanking us, but it truly was a magnificent effort by the entire team, the SpaceX team, the NASA team, and a team across America who was able to pull this off and bring human spaceflight again to our nation. Thanks for everything. Happy to be aboard.
And Dragon SpaceX, with that, ground will be enabling hardline power and comm connection shortly. You are go to doff your suits per procedure 4.012. We will be configuring your video to go external shortly, and we have one request for Bob's suit doffing when you're ready to copy.
We copy all. Go ahead for Bob's suit.
During your approach suit leak check, we noticed Bob's suit pass with a lower PSID than his previous vehicle and O&C checks. We still had plenty of margin to support you in a depress, but in order to rule out potential hardware issues, When Bob is doffing, after he opens his structural zipper, check all 3 bladder zipper heads to see if any are partially closed. It is possible that if the head is backed off slightly, that the white tooth is partially visible or a small gap can be seen between the end of the zipper head and the gasket end. Please report observations.
Copy. Bob will take a close look at his zippers when he doffs, and he'll get doffing first, so we'll let you know as soon as we see something or if we see something.
Great. Thank you so much.
Wow. So now Dragon has completed its docking sequence. There's a number of checks. That was an absolutely historic moment. And in spite of that, the ground team's getting right back to business, talking about the suit performance.
Just let us know when the interior cameras are secured.
On Dragon to ground,
Gotta turn the cameras off first before we can get them out of their suits.
Absolutely. So spacecraft is now docked. They've got several tasks that they're going to need to be able to do. While we're waiting for those tasks to happen, we're actually going to take a short break. But if, in case you just missed it, the Dragon spacecraft is now docked to the International Space Station, docked at 7:16 a.m. local time.
Yep.
Bob and Doug are at the space station.
Yeah, they're there. It was just under a 19-hour journey from their launch to their docking, so pretty much right on what we were expecting. They got there a little bit early today, which was nice, as they were able to get through all those burns. But they're docked. It's going to be a little while. They have to do that vestibule pressurization, and then they'll have to do some leak checks.
Dragon on Dragon to ground for Bob. I've got both structural zippers on my gloves lowered, and I do see white teeth visible on both sides. It looks like a full white tooth. I'll give you an update once I get to the leg zipper.
Copy. White teeth on both sides, and we'll await your next status.
So the crew right now just going through some checks of their gloves. They're about to get out of their suits. That'll be the first step for the crew on board Dragon. For the crew on board station, Chris Cassidy is going to start getting that vestibule pressurized, and then they're going to do leak checks. So they're going to be actually taking atmosphere from station, putting it into that vestibule, and then once we get all the leak checks done, things are thermally stabilized, it'll be time for hatch opening. We'll be able to see Bob and Doug get into the space station for the first time from on board the Dragon spacecraft. And again, for Doug Hurley, this is the exact port he was at almost 9 years ago when he was on the very last space shuttle mission. And now he's commanding the first commercial vehicle to dock with the International Space Station. I think that's going to do it for us in Hawthorne. We're going to give you into the very capable hands of Gary Jordan to take you through the rest of the hatch opening. We're going to be watching from here and following along. We can't wait to see these crew members on board the International Space Station. Thank you for everybody who tuned in. We hope you enjoyed the launch. We hope you enjoyed the ride uphill. We really hope you were with us every single moment from suit up until now, so you've been up for over 24 hours. But it's been an incredible experience for us to see these guys get on board the International Space Station, to watch Dragon go through the paces, to be lofted into orbit on Falcon 9. Something we've been waiting for years, seeing it come to fruition. I'm still grappling with.
Dragon, SpaceX on Dragon
really
to ground.
Incredible.
Video is
and
no
Shiv,
interior.
it was an honor doing this with you today.
Yeah, absolutely, Dan.
Dragon copies. Thanks, Anna.
Can't step on the crew. That's the one rule. There were some really great words there from all the flight control teams about how this was a joint partnership between NASA and SpaceX. I think everyone is over the moon here at SpaceX for this. Bob and Doug have got to be excited, and now back to business to get the vestibule ready to go, and then get them on board the station. So again, thank you for following us. Please continue to watch as Gary takes over for the hatch opening portion. And keep following our social media for more updates on what's happening with Hatch Open.
Over to you, Gary.
Thank you, Shiva. Thank you, Dan. What an incredible flight for Bob and Doug, lifting off just yesterday and now in space, attached to the International Space Station. Some kind words all over after docking at 9:16 a.m. Central, and a hard mate just 11 minutes later. We're still not done here. We're going to take you through the pressurization sequence and eventually hatch opening of the International Space Station.
SpaceX Dragon on Dragon to ground. Cabin, mic check,
And I hear you loud and clear on Dragon to ground. How me?
Loud and clear.
Excellent.
Good comm checks. We still have a lot of work to do here. We're going to pressurize the vestibule and eventually get...
And SpaceX Dragon with an update from Bob. It looks like a white tooth on the leg zipper as well. We'll take a close look if we can see anything else that might have resulted in that lower leak check pressure.
Copy. Really appreciate the report. Thank you.
Teams behind me will be configuring the Dragon and the International Space Station to welcome Bob and Doug aboard. First, of course, the International Space Station attitude control moment gyros, really holding the Dragon in place through the hard capture sequence. We'll start enabling those thrusters and pressurizing the vestibule. It'll take about an hour until we're able to get the hatch open. The teams here in Mission Control Houston Orbit 2, led by Flight Director Zeb Scoville, will be taking us through that process. Aboard the International Space Station, Commander Chris Cassidy standing by in Node 2. Right in front of that is the pressurized mating adapter. He recently opened up the hatch to introduce some of the station air and mix it, get a nice mix in there, avoiding some CO2 pockets. That hatch you see just